my name is Sarah Hameed. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I moved to Dubai at the age of 11, and I'm originally Pakistani, and I consider myself a Muslim.
My name is Huda Shaikh and I'm a Muslim. I come from Abu Dhabi, UAE.
I am Abhishek from New Delhi, India, and I am a Hindu.
My name's Miri Goldfield. I'm Jewish and I'm from Fairfield, Connecticut.
I've always lived in a joint family system with my aunt, uncle, cousins, and grandparents, so I have always been brought up in a Muslim household. For elementary school in Los Angeles, I went to a Muslim school where I was surrounded by only Muslims, and I was able to learn about my religion, and I was surrounded by people who had the same morals and values as me. Then for 4th and 5th grade, I went to a French school where I was surrounded by non-Muslims, and I was exposed to different cultures and religious backgrounds. When I moved to Dubai, UAE, although UAE is a Muslim country and Dubai is a Muslim city, I had mostly atheist and Christian friends. However, when I came to New York for college, I was exposed to a vast Muslim community where I made friends who had the same values and morals as me. A prominent person in my life who taught me about religion was my grandmother, as I saw her go through her own religious adversities and find her way to God. So that really inspired me to stay on a path where religion was a big part of my life. Although I'm a practicing Muslim, I have always had friends from various religious backgrounds, so religious diversity was something normal to me and something I really appreciated, as I was able to learn about different religions, helping me understand where other people's values derived from and where they got their morals from. The interesting thing about moving to Dubai is that my friends were in fact atheist and Christian, and I had more Muslim friends living in a non-Muslim country than I did living in a Muslim country.
I'm a junior and I study economics at NYU Abu Dhabi. Ethnicity-wise, my parents and my grandparents come from Yemen. Personally speaking, I consider myself to be a religious Muslim. I abide by rules and the values of my religion, so I pray 5 times a day and I fast, and I do everything that my religion set out for me to do. I guess the main reason I am this way is because of my parents, or my mom to be specific. She was always there to teach me or to tell me and remind me about the importance of faith in my daily life and my interaction with peers and how to deal with certain situations. If it weren't for her, I would have turned out completely different. Another reason, or another important factor, is we used to have mandatory Islamic lessons back in high school and middle school, and we'd be taught about the importance of the verses of Quran and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and how to apply them to our daily lives. So, those two.
Religion has always been an important part of my life, whether it is eating meat or my parents running the family business, or even the marriage of a family member. Everything is done according to what religion prescribes. For me, being spiritual means going to the temple every morning and thanking God for everything that we have and asking for good health and prosperity. But having said that, I'm quite satisfied when I say that my closest friends come from different walks of life and different religions. Living in a secular country which has a plethora of different religions, I have always had friends and family friends who do not have the same religious beliefs as I do. I sometimes take for granted the fact that I live in a place where no one religion is given preference, arguably, well, at least as far as the law is concerned. I feel that the progress of my country is partially attributable to its religious diversity. And I say this with confidence because having to deal with religious diversity makes people more tolerant of other ways of life. It creates a more liberal atmosphere where one can do as he or she pleases. And this kind of an atmosphere where interactions between people of different beliefs is not looked down upon is the reason why it is easier for people with different backgrounds and whole new perspectives to work together innovate, and to create new possibilities, economically as well as socially. I believe having religious diversity is the precursor to being in a liberal environment, since it helps us to learn to be more accepting, more tolerant, and most important of all, be more understanding. Religious diversity is an attribute of the greater diversity which one encounters in any global city. It makes us critically think about our own stance on issues, whether personal, social, or economical. This is essential to figuring yourself out, learning to live in a cosmopolitan world and to look at a broader picture from the perspective of humanity as a whole. This is why religious diversity is important.
I grew up in a Jewish household, so we keep kosher and use different plates. We go to temple on high holidays, that sort of thing. My dad was raised conservative in Massachusetts, and my mom grew up in Germany without any specific religion. One of her grandfathers was Jewish, but he barely survived Theresienstadt, the concentration camp. So being Jewish during my grandma's time wasn't a positive thing. Um, my mom converted to Judaism when she met my dad. Growing up, I hated being Jewish. That's one of the reasons why I never used my full name, Miriam. I always had a nickname like Mir, Mimi, and now Miri. Um, I always argued with my dad about the existence of God. Um, I guess it was part of my rebellious phase. I just didn't really ever want to stand out as Jewish since my neighborhood was almost entirely made up of Catholics. It also didn't help that I didn't really have any friends in the Hebrew school because they all attended the other high school in my town, so they already had their own cliques. Uh, Now I love being Jewish. I'm not sure, it just kind of clicked when I came to college. I believe in God too, but more in the way that God is hope, not an actual being. I usually explain now too that Miri is short for Miriam, so the nickname really doesn't have anything to do with disassociating myself from Judaism. It took me a while to accept my religion. I think that's true for a lot of people my age. But I like being Jewish. It gives me a stronger connection to my family and, by extension, all other Jews, and I really like that. Somehow I feel like this is more special than being some sort of Christian, of some Christian faith, which is the religion of the majority of Americans. Being Jewish feels unique, and belonging to a minority group makes me want to become more involved instead of trying to separate myself from it as much as possible. And I even wear a Star of David necklace. So, Jews.
After taking this course and taking part in this project, I have been fortunate enough to listen to my peers' backgrounds and appreciate their own personal journey to religion and the reasons how and why they got there. After coming to NYU, I was specifically exposed to Judaism and attended my first Passover dinner. I thoroughly enjoyed it as I was able to partake in the religious rituals and make friends from different religions. Especially a religion like Judaism, where I was never exposed to in Dubai and was too young to notice when I lived in Los Angeles. As a speaker that really inspired me and someone that I really enjoyed listening to in the multi-faith class was Frank Fredericks, as I truly admire his interfaith work that he's doing globally, and I found his spiritual journey extremely interesting. He inspired me to become a member of his World Faith Organization, which will enable me to work with people from different backgrounds to benefit humanity and work towards a greater good despite religious differences.
An important factor that led to my growth as a religious person is my interactions with non-Muslims about religion. After being exposed to such diverse communities, I realized how important interfaith dialogue is in creating tolerance and creating understanding about one's own religion and one's own perspective of religion. I encountered several questions from non-Muslims that always threw me off. I just never really knew how to answer them because I didn't know much. I didn't have the need to question them back when I was in my safety zone, or so I would call it. One question or one such example is why I wear the hijab. When I was asked that, I just didn't know how to give a clear and concise answer. It seemed so obvious in my head, but it was so hard to articulate. Another question is like why I only eat halal or kosher food. Why I do certain things that seem so clear to me as a Muslim, but when asked by a non-Muslim who didn't share my religion, seemed just vague and unclear. It's only in a religiously diverse community that that I was able to reach out further into my religion and went deeper into trying to understand what it truly means to be a Muslim. One of my favorite speakers would be Reverend Khadija Mateen. She really grabbed the class's attention, and she brought the concept of storytelling to an entirely different dimension. She emphasized how one story can be the stepping stone or a critical factor in creating tolerance in a community where there's different faiths. She definitely made me feel like I was important in creating change. Another speaker that I absolutely enjoyed listening to was Fatma Shamma. Her stance on creating equality between different sectors and highlighting the importance of tolerance and acceptance between different religious communities was straight to the point. She was realistic and she conveyed her opinions really well.
Listening to the narratives of my peers, I have now come to realize how religion and religious diversity can be used as a platform for social activism. In countries such as the US, the UK, and India, where people belong to different religious backgrounds and assimilate downwards, that is within their own communities, at least when they migrate to the city, religion can be used as a way to get an insight into the lives of the people on the fringes. I have now come to realize the motives behind the approaches undertaken by Fatima Shamma to alleviate social inequality. Activism, using the religious heads to do so, can be a great way to ensure that these people have the opportunities to move up the social ladder and can lead respectable lives while fulfilling their civic responsibilities as well. Listening to the narratives of my classmates makes it easier for me to delve deeper into what Reverend Khadija Mateen lives by, making people more aware of what religion prescribes, making them more aware of their past, what their ancestors have achieved, and the road that they traveled is a loaded realization that can alter the way people perceive the meaning of life and the way to lead it. Understanding the past can be used as a road to influence people to undertake initiatives and lead lives that would make the world more sustainable, socially and economically.
America is made up of so many different religions. Within our group, I'm Jewish, Abhishek is Hindu, and Huda and Sarah are Muslim. Growing up, I really was only exposed to a couple of religions, as was Huda, and Sarah and Abhishek grew up surrounded by a mixture of religions. In New York, though, just walking down the street, you come into contact with dozens of different religions, anything from Hinduism to Islam to agnostic. Abhishek grew up in New Delhi, and his friends were from all different backgrounds, and they're Buddhists, Hindus, Sikhs, and that's certainly different from how I grew up. It can be hard to branch out from similar people and the usual group of friends you hang out with. But as Rabbi Kaplan mentioned, everyone is similar. And the best way to come to an agreement in anything regarding multi-faith is to find similarities. Like Abhishek, I too believe that religious diversity helps foster acceptance. And like everyone in my group, we all love New York City. Even similarities that may be as simple as loving New York City can help bring people together. I think the best way to deal with anyone is to find similarities between yourself and them. I mean, you're less likely to dislike someone if you focus on what makes you guys similar instead of what makes you guys different. I think that also makes what Reverend Mateen said about inquiring about people's lives crucial to how you go about life. You have to get to know people with an open mind. If someone is from India, you have to ask where in India. Every part of a country can be different. You have to know the details. And that's what Reverend Mateen stresses, details. Because then that stranger you're talking to becomes more real. Everything about them becomes more personal. And it's in the details that you can also discover more similarities. By combining details and similarities, it makes it more possible to come to compromise in life in general and among multi-faith leaders.